Alright, here we go. So I'm playing some Branded Despia, and my opponent is also playing Branded Despia. Now, if you're playing against that I do Floodgate that Branded Despia has added, this is the video for you because I'm going to be showing you how to actually stop that combo. So your opponent, when they play, they're going to activate Aliber, grab Branded Fusion. Then once they activate Branded Fusion, you could ash this card. This is the card that you want to ash. If you don't have Ash in hand, they're going to send I do. Um, when they send this card right here, that means they're going to be going for the Floodgate. Now, if they send Tragedy, then they're going for just their normal branded plays. But when they're going for the Floodgate, I do is what you're going to see. Hit the graveyard. So the next choke point of this deck, if you couldn't ash the branded fusion, but if you have an effect Veiler or imperm, you can effect Veiler or imperm the Lebellion, and by doing that, you can basically stop this card from being able to then go into Mirror Jade. But just keep in mind that if they have a Super Poly in hand, which this deck does run Super Poly, they can Super Poly to avoid the imperm or the effect Veiler. So that's three different hand traps that can pretty much make a play here. Now, once they activate Mirror Jade, or once they get Mirror Jade on the field, don't Imperm or Effect Veiler this because you'll just be wasting your Imperm or Effect Veiler at this point of the match. Because this card sends as cost the Albion, and they don't actually like the goal is not to banish Aliber because you need Aliber banished. The goal is to send Albion to the graveyard. So I'll explain this. So Albion, when it's in the graveyard, this card gets an effect to set a branded spell or trap. So if you have a DD Crow right here, you can activate DD Crow and banish Albion before they get into the end phase. If you get this card banished before the end phase, because it says during the end phase, if this card is in the graveyard because it was sent there this turn, if it's in the graveyard during the end phase, then they get to use the effect of this card. So if you got DD Crow in hand, you banish this card before the end phase, and then they can't get to search for expulsion. Expulsion is what'll lock you out. So that's three different hand traps that you can use to stop these plays so far. But if you miss out on the Albion with DD Crow, there's another point of where you can use DD Crow as well as Call by the Grave on your own turn to stop the I do play. And I'll actually show it with the Call by the Grave. So he's going to get the Albion effect right here, and he's going to grab Expulsion. Now, here's the problem with Expulsion is this card has one major weakness. It targets. Now, cards that target mean that they have to target something, and then once it resolves, the target has to be there when it resolves for the effect to work. So I'll show you how to beat this. Now, the cards that it target, they can be banished or in the graveyard. So you don't want to just go DD Crow or Call by the Grave immediately on their I do, because what'll happen is more than likely they'll still get I do onto the field, because even if it's banished or in the graveyard, they can still get it onto the field. Now, if you Call by the Grave it, the effects will be negated on it, but more than likely they'll probably chain I do. Not I do. They'll probably chain Expulsion and then get it on the field before you Call by the Grave it, because Call by the Grave itself actually targets. So they'll do what you're trying to do to them to you, basically. So this is what you want to do. So wait until they flip Expulsion and then chain Call by the Grave. Now, you saw that they target I do, and then they also targeted Aliber. So what you're going to do is move I do. Now, if you have DD Crow, right here, you could also just activate DD Crow instead of Call by the Grave. All you need to do is move I do, because as long as it's not where it was targeted, then basically this card's effect will fizzle and it won't go through. So now they've removed their Mirror Jade off the field. And now they have no monster. Your cards won't get destroyed in the end phase because they don't have Mirror Jade, because they removed it off their field themselves. Also, they don't get the I do summon, and they don't get the search for consistency with the Aliber, so they don't get to make follow-up plays using the Aliber because you stopped all of that shit literally right here, right? So let's see what I do. So now my opponent has basically these three cards to work with, and now I'm free to pretty much make my plays. So those are four cards that can shut down what they do basically. Another card that can stop the plays of this is Ghost Bell. So Ghost Bell can be used because whenever they're trying to bring something from the graveyard, meaning whenever they go to activate um, Branded Expulsion, when they go to get I do, you'll be able to activate Ghost Bell. Ghost Bell will negate Branded Expulsion, and when it negates it, it'll destroy the card, and they won't be able to actually summon it onto the field. So that's another hand trap. Now let's say they do get it onto the field. There are other cards that I'll talk about in a second after this video, explaining how to actually stop it if I do actually does hit your field if you just didn't draw into a hand trap. But there are other cards that you can use. So my opponent goes into his Mirror Jade. Now he flipped over Banishment. Now because I was going for the effect of Lubellion, like I was saying earlier, when I was saying that just because you're activating something against Lubellion, it doesn't mean that it's stopping it. You have to negate Lubellion to stop its effect, which is why I was saying that you could dodge the effects by super polying, which is what he actually did to me with super poly did. So he gets Draco Sepelia right here. My effect's still going to go off, meaning I'm going to get Mirror Jade. Now, I'm not going to activate the effects of Mirror Jade right away. Most players will just immediately, the second this card hits the field, if there's a monster on the field, they just start activating the effect to banish instantly. You don't want to do that. Against a card like Draco Stapelia, what I'm going to do, because I hadn't used my normal summon, I'm just using it with this Fallen of Albaz. I'm going to activate Fallen of Albaz. This is going to force his Draco Stapelia negate. Um, no matter which of the two cards he chooses to negate, I'm still going to get the same inboard because my Mirror Jade is going to activate after his Draco Stapelia. So then that way I go Chain Link 3 on him. So I'm Chain Link 1 with Fallen of Albaz. He's going to be Chain Link 2 with his Draco Stapelia. And then I'm going to be Chain Link 3 with Mirror Jade. Meaning that my Mirror Jade's effect is going to happen regardless. I send Albion and I banish his card. So now I can pretty much be free to make an attack. Of course, I get a negate on here, but it does not matter because I was able to send Albion, meaning that I can actually reset Mirror Jade if I choose to do so with Branded in red, but I need to have a Despian monster in my graveyard to do so. But since this card is negated and I can't actually reset it anyways, I don't need it. So I'm going to just use Branded Retribution to pretty much stop him from making follow-ups, sending my Mirror Jade back to the deck. And he is going to give me a target because he summons out Fallen of Albaz himself, which is going to send my Fallen of Albaz to the graveyard to make his Albia. So now since I have a target, I can flip my Branded in red, go into my Lubellion, discard my Lipton, put Dramaturge onto the field, and then go into Mirror Jade, negate his card, which it didn't need to be negated, and then just banish his card. He doesn't have any more plays. Literally, all three of those monsters. Once he ended his turn, I was going to be able to attack, and I was going to be able to use the effect of Albion to put cards on the field so I can make more plays on my turn as well. But my opponent was not ready for me. My skill level much better than his. Now let's go and look at some other cards that you can use to basically stop that effect once it happens. So if I do ends up getting summoned onto your field, let's see what we can do. So here's my branded Despia deck. Of course, I do run some weird cards in here, but this deck is super consistent. All right, so Dark Hole. You can run Dark Hole in your deck. If you get hit what I do, literally you can use Dark Hole to wipe the entire field, start over. Destroying your own I do will allow you to be able to make summons because this card prevents any summon. So Dark Hole is a good way to get that card off your field. Also, Droplet is a good way to get the card off the field. If your opponent has a monster on the field, literally activate Droplet. Droplet can send a monster from your side of the field to negate something on your opponent's side of the field. You can just use the I do that they gave you to negate something that they have on the field. Torrential Tribute. You can use Torrential Tribute once they summon something onto the field, destroy everything off the field. That's another way. Uh-oh. Let's see, what else? Also, Ghost Bell. So this is the other card I was talking about. Now, you see it says, oh, you see it says when your opponent special summons a monster from the graveyard, you can, as a quick effect, discard this card to negate the activation. That means that when your opponents try to special summon something, you can literally activate this card and negate that card effect. DD Crow, if you guys don't know what DD Crow is, which is the other card I was talking about, this card right here, not once per turn, can, as a quick effect, discard this card from your hand, and you can target one card in your opponent's graveyard and banish it. Literally use this card to move the I do when they target it. So all you're doing is just moving it to a different spot, so then that way they don't have a target for it. You're literally moving it out of the target zone, and it causes the card to fizzle and they can't actually summon it. So DD Crow is another way to get around the I do combo. Um, there are other cards too. There are other cards. I got some in my Floowandereeze deck as well. Like all my decks pretty much have something to deal with it. But D Shifter, if you can play with D Shifter, you send D Shifter, and basically what'll happen is, um, D Shifter will banish your opponent's cards. So if you have D Shifter and you activate this before they send with Lubellion, or not Lubellion, before they send Albion to the graveyard with Mirror Jade, you D-shifter, and when they go to send it, it'll get banished instead of sent to the graveyard. And what that'll do is that'll actually make it to where now they can't get the effect to search for their expulsion, and yeah, combo pretty much sizzles. So yeah, there's a bunch of different cards that you can run. There are many more cards that you could also run, that can pretty much prevent all of that. But those are some of the main cards that I would kind of recommend. Those are the ones that most people run in their decks anyways, like Droplet, DD Crow. So DD Crow is much more powerful now for preventing that call by the grave. Um, just a bunch of cards, especially since Cross-Out Designator was limited. Those are all like much better cards to actually get rid of this I do card. So yeah, hopefully this video helped you guys with knowing how to actually beat this I do combo. And some of that is just really good information for just beating Branded Despia in general. But yeah, so hopefully you guys go out there and start winning. Catch you guys in the next one.